Life shifts when priorities align with God. Putting Him first brings clarity and direction. So many people live in confusion, anxiety, and constant unrest, not because they're weak or incapable, but because their foundation is misaligned. When you try to build your life on your own strength, your own understanding, or even your own timeline, you will always feel like something is off. But the moment you realign your life and say, God, you're first, before my plans, before my wants, before my relationships, everything begins to fall into place. It doesn't mean life becomes perfect. It means your path becomes clearer. When God is first, the fog lifts. You stop living reactively and you start walking with intention and divine direction. Many people chase success, validation, and wealth, thinking these things will bring fulfillment. But without God, all of it is hollow. You can have money in the bank and still be bankrupt in your soul. You can have followers online and still feel unseen in your spirit. You can have applause from the world and still go home at night feeling empty. Why? Because there's a place in the human heart that only God can fill. The world can decorate your outside, but only God can heal your inside. People strive to reach the top only to discover the ladder was leaning against the wrong wall. Putting God first repositions the ladder on a solid foundation. That's when the climb becomes meaningful. When God is first, everything else finds its rightful place. Your mind becomes more focused, your emotions more balanced, your relationships more rooted. The reason many people are overwhelmed is not because they're doing too much, but because they've put the wrong things in first place. If God is not first, everything else is out of order. But when He is first, you begin to notice a peace that wasn't there before, a calm that carries you, a confidence that doesn't come from ego but from faith. You realize that you don't have to beg for what God already has for you. You don't have to fight battles that belong to Him. Life becomes less about performance and more about presence. His presence guiding you every step of the way. Putting God first is not weakness. It's not naivety. It's not blind tradition. It's the wisest and strongest choice you can make. The world might call it foolish to surrender control to a higher power, but that's because the world doesn't understand the power that comes from surrender. There's a strength that rises in the soul of someone who says, God, I trust you even when I don't understand. I choose you even when life doesn't make sense. I follow you even when the road is unclear. That kind of faith builds resilience. That kind of submission births supernatural strength. True spiritual maturity begins where pride ends and surrender starts. Delays, closed doors, and disappointments often aren't punishments, they're divine realignments. Sometimes God blocks the path not because He's against you, but because He's ahead of you. He sees what you don't, He knows what you can't. And when you've put Him first, you stop seeing delays as denials and begin recognizing them as redirections. Closed doors stop discouraging you, they start reassuring you. You begin to understand that whatever is meant for you cannot miss you, and whatever misses you was never meant to stay. That kind of clarity comes when you're aligned with the one who holds your future. God honors those who honor Him. When you seek first His kingdom, not second, not when it's convenient, not when everything else fails, you unlock provision and favor that no man can stop. When you prioritize God, He prioritizes you. When you make room for Him in your schedule, He makes room for you in places you never imagined. You don't have to manipulate, compromise, or compete. When God opens a door, no man can shut it. When you put Him first, you don't chase blessings, they begin to chase you. Favor will find you in the field like it found David. Promotion will find you in obscurity, like it found Joseph. God knows where you are. And when He is first, you don't have to shout to be seen. Heaven already sees you. When God is first, stress begins to break off your life. Not because life is easy, but because you're no longer carrying everything by yourself. You stop striving and start abiding. You stop worrying and start trusting. You stop overthinking and start surrendering. So many people carry anxiety not because they're broken, but because they've taken on a role that was never theirs, trying to control everything. But when you put God first, you give control back to the only one truly capable. And in that transfer comes peace that surpasses understanding. You can walk into chaos and still be calm. You can face uncertainty and still be confident. Because your anchor isn't in outcomes, it's in God. Relationships become healthier when God is first. You stop idolizing people and start valuing them properly. You don't expect another human to complete you because you're already whole in Him. That kind of emotional maturity makes you love better, lead better, and live better. When God is first, your boundaries are clearer. You don't compromise to be accepted because you already know you're loved. You don't beg to be chosen because you've already been called. You stop looking for someone to rescue you because your Savior already came. And with that mindset, you don't just attract people, you attract the right people. Putting God first doesn't mean you won't go through storms. It means you won't go through them alone. When life hits hard, and it will, the foundation you've built on God will keep you standing. You won't collapse under pressure because your strength doesn't come from you. It comes from the one who upholds you. God doesn't promise a storm-free life, but He does promise a storm-proof soul. And when He's first in your life, even in your darkest nights, you will find light. Even in your heaviest moments, you will feel held. That's the power of divine priority. Every day you have a choice. Will you serve your fear, your flesh, or your Father? Will you run to what's easy, or will you lean into what's eternal? Putting God first is not a one-time decision. It's a daily discipline. It's choosing His word over worry. It's choosing prayer over panic. It's choosing purpose over pressure. It's choosing stillness in a world addicted to hustle. And when you do, you begin to live from a different realm. You don't just react to life. You respond with faith. You don't just survive. You walk in victory. Because when God is first, He gives you power, love, and a sound mind. You rise stronger when God is your source, not your job, not your status, not people's opinions. When God is your source, you don't get shaken by storms or sidetracked by setbacks. You understand that favor isn't tied to titles, it's tied to obedience. And when He's first, you obey quickly. You don't need all the answers, you just need His presence. And with that comes confidence. Not arrogance, but the deep, unshakable assurance that even if everything falls apart, your foundation is secure. That's the kind of strength the world can't give, and it can't take away. The peace that comes from putting God first surpasses understanding. It doesn't always make sense, but it always makes a difference. While others are breaking under pressure, you're anchored. While others are rushing, you're rooted. While others are looking for answers, you've already found the answer. His name is Jesus, and when He's at the center of your life, everything begins to orbit with stability. You no longer chase peace, you carry it. You no longer search for joy, you embody it. Because He is your source, and your soul is finally home. True elevation starts with submission. You don't rise by striving, you rise by surrendering. The world says hustle harder, but the Word says humble yourself before the Lord, and He will lift you up. That's the divine equation. Humility brings elevation. Surrender births strength. Obedience invites overflow. And when God is first, that becomes your lifestyle. You don't have to chase platforms. God will give you a voice. You don't have to network your way to favor. God will bring you before kings. When He's first, the promotion is not just about you. It becomes a platform to glorify Him. You can't lose when you put God first. You only lose when you try to live without Him. Everything built apart from Him is temporary. Everything surrendered to Him becomes eternal. The time you give God is never wasted. It's invested. The energy you use in prayer is never lost. It's multiplied. The life you lay down for Him is never diminished. It's elevated. Because when God is first, you live with purpose, walk with power, and lead with peace. And at the end of the day, That's what life is really about. Not possessions, not popularity, but purpose. And purpose only comes when God is first. Many chase success, validation, and wealth. But without God, it's an empty climb. Society has trained us to believe that success is found at the top, that if we just work hard enough, sacrifice enough, and push through the pain, we'll finally feel fulfilled. So we run, we grind, we overextend, we compare, we compete, and in the process, we forget to consult the very one who gave us life in the first place. We post pictures with smiles, while our souls silently scream for help. We acquire more, but we feel less. We gain popularity, but lose peace. We fill our calendars, and drain our spirits. Because the climb toward success without God is steep, lonely, and deceptive. It promises joy, but delivers emptiness. It guarantees admiration, but offers no true love. You can reach the top of the mountain, only to discover you've built a castle on sand. And when the winds blow and the storms come, everything collapses, because the foundation was never rooted in God. There are people who have reached milestones. Others only dream of fame, fortune, status, applause. Yet they lie awake at night, wrestling with a deep, unspeakable void. That void is the absence of divine presence. It's the hollow echo of a soul that has everything the world offers, and yet feels starved. Because no matter how much you possess, if God is not in the center, you will always feel like something is missing. That something is not a bigger platform, not a better relationship, not more zeros in the bank account. It's God. It's the peace that surpasses understanding. It's the rest for your soul. It's the fulfillment that only comes when you're living for a higher purpose, a kingdom purpose. And if you're not chasing that, then you're chasing shadows, always running, but never arriving. We weren't created to be famous. We were created to be faithful. We weren't designed to chase validation from man. We were born to walk in the affirmation of our Creator. When your worth is tied to your performance, your joy becomes conditional. When your value is tied to applause, your peace becomes fragile. But when your identity is rooted in God, everything changes. You begin to operate from a place of wholeness, instead of desperation. You show up not to impress but to serve. You pursue excellence, not for recognition, but because you represent the King of Kings. Your ambition becomes holy when your aim is to glorify God, not self. Some people think God wants to restrict their success, as if putting Him first means putting their dreams last. That's a lie. God is not intimidated by your ambition. He wants to bless it. He's not trying to shrink your destiny. He wants to expand it. But He won't allow anything to take His place in your heart. Not the dream, not the relationship, not the money, not the title. Because anything you put before Him becomes an idol, and God cannot bless what competes with Him. So sometimes He'll let you taste success without Him, just to show you how bitter it feels. He'll let the money come, but it won't satisfy. He'll let the doors open, but they'll feel empty. Why? Because He loves you too much to let you settle for a life that looks full, but is spiritually bankrupt. The truth is, success without God is like drinking salt water. The more you drink, the thirstier you become. It promises to quench your soul, but only leaves you more dehydrated. You keep striving, hoping the next win will finally fill the void. But every victory without God becomes just another reminder that you're still empty. And at some point, you have to stop and ask yourself, what am I really chasing? Who am I becoming in this pursuit? Is the price I'm paying worth what I'm gaining? And if the answer is no, then maybe it's time to surrender. Maybe it's time to say, God, I've tried it my way. I've chased success without you. I've tried to build a life apart from you. And now I realize, I don't want the crown if you're not in the kingdom. I don't want the win if you're not in the room. Putting God first doesn't mean you abandon your goals. It means you invite Him into them. It means you stop striving for your name to be known and start living to make His name great. It means you don't just ask God to bless your plans, you ask Him for the wisdom to follow His. And when that shift happens, everything changes. You stop hustling for your worth. You stop chasing people's approval. You stop measuring your life by worldly metrics, and you begin to live from a deep eternal place. You start seeing that peace is more valuable than praise, that purpose is more fulfilling than performance, that being obedient is greater than being popular. The world might not understand it. They might look at you sideways when you start saying no to things that compromise your values. They might question why you're turning down certain opportunities, walking away from certain deals, or choosing a path that doesn't make sense to the culture. But what they won't see is the unseen hand of God, guiding your steps, protecting your peace, and promoting you in ways that only heaven can. Because when you put God first, you stop living for the crowd. You live for the cloud of His glory. You stop performing. You start walking in purpose. There will always be temptations to build a life that looks impressive on the outside, but is crumbling on the inside. But don't fall for the trap. Don't exchange eternal impact for temporary applause. Don't settle for shallow success when God has called you to deep purpose. The enemy wants you distracted. He wants you busy, burned out and blind to the things of God. He wants you to chase vanity until your spirit is numb. But God is calling you higher. He's calling you to a life that's not just successful in the eyes of man, but significant in the eyes of heaven. That's why the climb without God is so dangerous. Because it looks right, it feels urgent, it's applauded, it's rewarded, but it's empty. Because in the end, when the spotlight fades and the crowd disperses, it's just you and your Creator. And the question won't be, how much did you make, or how many people followed you? The question will be, did you follow me? Did you put me first when it wasn't popular? Did you trust me when it cost you something? Because what good is it to gain the whole world and lose your soul? That's not success, that's tragedy. So today, take inventory of your soul. Be honest with yourself. What are you truly chasing? Who sits on the throne of your heart? Because if it's not God, then it's time to make a change. Not tomorrow, not next year, now. Put Him back where He belongs. First, before the plans, before the dreams, before the grind, before the applause. Let Him lead the climb. Let Him shape the vision. Let Him order your steps. Because the moment you do, you'll discover what real success feels like. Not just success that looks good, but success that feels whole, that nourishes your soul, that pleases your Father. When God is first, everything else finds its rightful place. That one truth can reorder your entire life. It may sound simple, but it's the foundation upon which peace, purpose, and power are built. The reason so many people feel out of balance, overwhelmed, anxious, and lost is because their priorities are misaligned. They're trying to hold everything together while placing God somewhere down the list, somewhere after the money, the relationship, the deadlines, the dream. But God doesn't bless disorder. He doesn't move in confusion. He operates in divine order. And that order starts with Him at the top. Not second, not third, not when it's convenient, but first. When God is truly first, confusion begins to lift. The fog clears. Decisions get easier. The noise gets quieter. The direction becomes clearer. Not because life is suddenly easy, but because the Creator is finally leading. When God is first, your identity becomes unshakable. You're no longer at the mercy of public opinion or personal insecurity. You stop trying to prove your worth to people who were never meant to validate you in the first place. You start walking with a quiet confidence, not because of who you are, but because of whose you are. You know that you are chosen, loved, protected, and called, not because of your performance, but because of His presence in your life. You don't panic when things don't go your way, because you trust the one who orders your steps. You no longer run to people for what only God can give you: peace, joy, direction, healing, and unconditional love. When God is first, relationships either flourish or fall off, and both are blessings. When He's at the center, you begin to see who's really for you and who's just using you. You start valuing connection over convenience, covenant over chemistry. He'll expose the distractions, remove the counterfeits, and reveal the people who are aligned with your assignment. And yes, some people will walk away, but when God is first, you realize that loss isn't always a curse. It's often a divine clearing. He's not subtracting to hurt you. He's pruning to bless you. Sometimes God has to remove who you think you need, so he can make room for who he actually sent. When God is first, your battles no longer belong to you. They belong to him. You don't fight with fear, bitterness, or revenge. You fight with faith, prayer, and praise. You stop reacting out of emotion and start responding with wisdom. You don't have to defend yourself. He becomes your defender. You don't have to chase justice. He brings it in due season. You stop carrying burdens that were never yours to bear. And in that surrender, you find strength. Because putting God first doesn't mean life gets easier. It means you stop carrying it alone. You begin to see that your weakness is not a limitation. It's an invitation for God's power to move in your life. When God is first, your time gets redeemed. You stop wasting hours trying to fix things that only God can heal. You stop chasing distractions that look urgent but rob your energy. You learn the power of pause, the strength of Sabbath, the beauty of stillness. You understand that rest is not laziness, it's trust. You no longer glorify being busy. You glorify being obedient. Because being everywhere doing everything doesn't mean you're effective. It might just mean you're exhausted. But when God is first, he teaches you where to go, what to say, who to trust, and when to move. He aligns your schedule with your purpose. When God is first, your money becomes a tool, not a trap. You stop chasing wealth and start stewarding it. You tithe not out of fear, but out of faith. You give not because you have extra, but because you trust that God is your provider. You don't idolize the blessing, you honor the blesser. And when you do, favor follows, doors open, opportunities arise, not because you forced them, but because God directed them. He blesses what's surrendered. He multiplies what's offered with a pure heart. He takes little and turns it into overflow, not just for you, but so you can be a blessing to others. When God is first, your dreams become divine. You stop aiming for success and start aiming for significance. You realize that a dream from God is bigger than a paycheck, a platform, or a title. It's about impact. You don't hustle to make it happen. You obey to let it happen. You understand that vision requires submission, and that delay doesn't mean denial. It means preparation. God isn't just trying to bless you. He's trying to build you. And if you rush the process, you'll sabotage the promise. But when God is first, you embrace his timing, even when it doesn't make sense, because you know he sees the whole picture, and you trust him more than your own understanding. When God is first, your past loses its power. Shame no longer whispers lies in your ear. Guilt no longer paralyzes your potential. You're not defined by what you did. You're defined by what he did on the cross. And because of that, you walk free. Not perfect, but free. Not flawless, but forgiven. You stop rehearsing the pain and start releasing it. You realize that grace isn't just a concept, it's a covering. And the same God who redeemed you is now using your story to bring hope to others. What once made you cry now becomes a testimony. What once looked like failure now becomes fuel. When God is first, fear loses its grip. You stop living small. You stop playing it safe. You stop bowing to anxiety, intimidation, and insecurity. You start walking in boldness, not arrogance, but authority, because you know that the spirit inside you is greater than the fear around you. You take risks with wisdom. You step out even when you're unsure. You move even when you're scared, because obedience is your new strategy, and you've learned that delayed obedience is still disobedience. So when God speaks, you move. When he says wait, you rest. When he says no, you trust that his rejection is redirection. When God is first, even pain has purpose. Trials become training grounds. Delays become development seasons. Heartbreak becomes heart transformation. You stop asking,
Why me? And start declaring, use me. You realize that God doesn't waste a wound. He doesn't ignore your tears. He collects them. He counts them. And he turns them into rivers of ministry for someone else. You begin to see that the pain that once broke you is now the platform from which you encourage others. The crushing didn't kill you. It revealed the oil. And now what was meant to destroy you is the very thing God is using to elevate you. When God is first, peace becomes non-negotiable. You protect it. You prioritize it. You stop explaining yourself to people who don't understand your boundaries. You don't chase chaos. You walk away from it. You don't engage every battle. You let God handle it. You become comfortable being misunderstood because you're not living for approval. You're living for alignment. And that alignment brings a peace that the world cannot offer and cannot take away. A peace that surpasses understanding. A peace that carries you through storms. A peace that reminds you that no matter what comes, God is still in control. When God is first, your life becomes a living testimony, not just of what you've done, but of who He is. People begin to look at your life and see evidence of His faithfulness, not perfection, but progress, not ease, but endurance. They see the fruit, they feel the love, they sense the power, and it's not because you're great, but because you've made Him your foundation. The marriage that's thriving, the mind that's at peace, the business that's prospering, the calling that's being fulfilled, all of it points back to one truth. God is first, and because He's first, everything else is in its rightful place. So don't be afraid to reprioritize. Don't be afraid to start over. Don't be ashamed to say, I got it wrong, but I'm getting it right now. Because the moment you put God back in His rightful place, the moment you say, Lord, not my will, but yours, that's when alignment begins. That's when clarity comes. That's when blessings flow, not because of what you've done, but because of who you've chosen to honor. And when God is honored, He shows up. When God is trusted, He moves. When God is first, everything else, your mind, your heart, your home, your vision, your future, finds its rightful place. So today I challenge you, don't just acknowledge God with your lips. Put Him first with your life. Let Him lead. Let Him rule. Let Him reorder everything that's out of place. Because when He's in His rightful place, you step into yours. You become who you were born to be. Not just another person climbing a ladder, but a child of God walking in purpose, covered by grace, filled with power, and unshakable in faith. That's what happens when God is first. That's what alignment feels like. That's what true life begins to look like.